trade-wise, just give me just a quick layout of what it could mean to have more decentralization of sorts vis-a-vis trade. Is there a bit of a core movement or a correlation with more decentralized making of cities, maybe away from just Kampala? Is there an implication for trade?
In fact, there is an implication for trade. It makes sense, or it's much more convenient when there is a decentralization of trade centers, so that the trade capital doesn't only have to be Kampala. We could have various centers. We could have Jinja. We could have Fort Portal. In that way, people don't have to all travel to Kampala to trade. And there is a cheaper, therefore, movement and delivery of goods, and therefore trade, the country is much more competitive. So decentralization of trade centers is key. In fact, if you look at most of the developed economies, you find that a lot of cities actually have trade economies. It's not just the one capital city. If you look at all the traffic, some of the traffic, I think there are studies that indicate that 60% of the traffic that is coming to Kampala is actually just going through Kampala. So it's not necessarily needed in Kampala.
Right.
So if we had more trade centers, more trade locations, Kampala wouldn't have to be as congested as it would be. You remember in the past, Jinja was a major industrial center of Uganda, because that's where the electricity is, that's where the water is. But now we've moved all the industries to Kampala. Is that really necessary? We could still have an industrial center in Jinja where the industries and the manufacturing actually is. Everything doesn't have to be all, congested and consolidated into one location. It just makes it much more just incompetitive and much more expensive.
It's quite interesting, because looking at example of like what you're alluding to, maybe Entebbe being more administrative, Jinja being very, very industrial. When you look at Germany, you kind of see the same. Berlin being strictly administrative, Frankfurt being a business hub, Hamburg, on the other hand, having a port which is only second to Rotterdam or Amsterdam. Rotterdam, I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken. Is this the direction that we need to be taking? And again, I'm trying to think like a trade person here, because you point this out in a manner that is quite elaborate, especially when you give some stats like close to 60% of the traffic going through Kampala. Well, it's not actually destined for Kampala, it's just going through. Is this something that we need to be cognizant of when we're making our plans or trade projections for like 10-year plans, to just try and decentralize all of these things?
Yes, it is something that we definitely, as a country, have to be looking at. Decentralization helps the equal distribution of employment, actually. Because if you look at people, if you look at the graduates, say, in Jinja, having to come to Kampala for jobs, everyone is coming to Kampala for jobs, when they could actually just stay in Jinja, where they've grown up, where they know the locale, to actually get jobs. Everyone doesn't necessarily have to come to Kampala. But then also, on the other point, is congesting Kampala with everything means there is just a concentration of pollution. You're degrading the environment. You can see a lot of wetlands have been destroyed just to set up industries in and around Kampala. If we have Port Portal, we have Jinja, we have Gulu, we have industries can be set up in these areas, in these locales, especially if you look at, say, Gulu, for example. It has land, it is arable, it's now a city, it has the roads. Industries can be set up there so that the young in Gulu don't have to necessarily travel to Uganda, to Kampala to get jobs. But then also those industries can be using products or goods that are naturally produced in and around Gulu. So if we have industries that are processing simsim or grain or maize, these are all things that are produced or grown in Gulu. But they have to come to Kampala to be processed, which is unfortunate. But if this can then be processed in Gulu, then more employment will be in Gulu. The destruction of the environment doesn't have to happen, because the industries can be actually constructed on land that is suitable for such construction. There will be no destroying the wetlands, which is what we're doing if every industry wants to be constructed in Kampala.